The roll-up is one of the more basic beginner exercises in the Pilates method. However, I have come across some of the most advanced bodies that still have trouble keeping their legs straight and their feet on the ground. We're going to break down a few reasons as to why that happens, what we as teachers should really be looking for, and what we can do about it to help everybody be more successful. Now, the first reason, which is the most obvious, is tightness in the low back, right? And because of muscles that do not know how to eccentrically work, it is hard to come up against gravity with strength in the abdominals to shorten and concentrically work in order to make the opposite reaction of eccentric opening and widening and lift of the spine and the low back. Right? And then on the way down, we want to be able to reverse that conversation, pulling together in the back body as the front body opens. But of course, if there's tightness in the low back, that's going to be really hard. We can throw the feet underneath a strap. We can give assistance all day. We could even start from sitting. But I really want to go a little bit deeper into, is it really just tightness in the low back? Because nothing works singularly in the body. Really, what has to happen is we need to find more weight and work and responsibility in the legs to help counter and oppose gravity as we come up and control back down. Here's what I mean. So, in this action right here of just being down on the mat, right? I'm not even going to say neutral, I'm just laying down, okay? Just lay down. We should have an open angle in the hip socket. This is an extended hip, okay? When we come up over and around the legs, we're going to be more in hip flexion. Here is what the catch is. If we initiate, and if you see your clients not engaged through their hip extensors, meaning the muscles that hold this angle open, meaning the wanda, all right, all the stuff, all the goods, right, everything hugged into center. You can be in your Pilates stance, you can be in parallel, together, center, but has work to actually keep open the front of the hips. Immediately there has to be a response in here. Now, if I let go, right, or even if I'm apart, it's a different exercise for what's happening in this relationship to center. So I have to start with engagement, and that engagement should be anchored down into the mat because my legs are my constant in this exercise. They get to anchor weight throughout the entirety of the exercise. That weight will shift and change as I move because that's what movement's about. So as I come up, now that the legs are anchored, I can find more of that opposition of what pulls me back away from the legs, allowing me to come into the contraction and keep the scoop. Now, this is where you will see a lot of people jump over the tightness in their low back because the strength in their hip flexors, which are beginning to flex now to help me up. It's not just all abs, right? I'm coming into hip flexion. Use your hip flexors, right? I could jump and stack up to a straight spine. Variation on theme, love the idea, know what you're working with. But if I want to keep that curve to get the full elongation of my hamstrings, right, which have just really been working to keep that weight and grounding, as I keep coming over, I find how I have to lift as I keep that weight pressed down and active. My back body has become longer and more open. My front body should be engaged. That includes quads, legs, thighs, pushing weight into the mat so that I can lift and pull weight up out of the mat. Now here comes gravity with me on the way down. And the minute I start moving, I'm coming into hip extension, right? I'm not going to initiate by dropping weight down into my back. You want to pull your belly button to your spine? Cool, keep it there. But don't think that that's going to start moving your hip sockets. Hips move hips. So to come into extension, here I come. Back body has to now pull together. Can't always be about flexible long hamstrings. Got to shorten those puppies up. Pull and scoop, and I can control one bone down at a time, opening the front of the hips and getting this nice articulation in my lumbar, right? Now, If that is so difficult to do, because trust me, it's freaking hard. I was shaking if you didn't see, right? I can make it look as graceful as possible, but I'm going to need to shut up and breathe, because that exhale is that opposition as I press that weight down. Now, if that's so hard to come on up, don't make your client start from there, right? Strap around the feet. What's it really for? Not to hold your feet down. It's there for you to find what that opposition is pulling away from. Because the action of hip flexion is so strong for so many people, especially those who have sedentary days, right? That as they hit that moment of coming up, they just want to pull together and drop down into that hip flexion. Teach lift from the beginning. Start with the knees bent, a shorter lever, weight in the heels. I'm pulling on the strap to find where I can find strength and opposition back away from. Some may not be able to start exactly going into flexion of the spine. They might just have to start with the feeling of exhale and pull back away from the thighs as the thighs get longer, even if they need to hold. And then that action of bringing one bone forward at a time can start easing them into flexion and stacking back up. Pulling open and away, thinking, what's going to change that angle? And then as they graduate, they can continue down a little bit more. Maybe hands still need to stay into the sides. Press into. I like to find a press and a reach. If a pull's got to happen, it's got to happen. Now remember, this is a choice to come up in flexion. Do you see that falling forward into the angle of flexion? Or is it their opposition? Is it there? Is it present? Because that's what we're looking for on the way down. Eventually, as they get stronger, the back opens more. The work of the hips and the grounding through the strength in the legs begins to unravel the work. So much so that then it's like, well, what else can we do with that? So I'm going to take this into a little bit of tower time, right? So using the roll back bar, you'll see any tightness in my hips as my feet come off the poles, right? That's what that is. And I can pull my abs back, and I can tell you I'm tight in my hip flexors today, and I can feel how it also resonates in tightness around my low spine, around S1, all right? And right about here, I'm gonna get the under more under, right? I have to keep pulling abs back, opening up the front of my hips, really work to ground down through my thighs in order to not, are you ready? Watch this. Pull my quads with me as if I'm coming into hip flexion. Sometimes you'll even see people work really hard to pull your belly button to your spine and press the lumbar, and you see how that shortens and pulls me up into hip flexion. That I shouldn't be in because this is an angle of extension. So it's okay that my feet came off the poles, but I should still have a grounding down. And if there's tightness, bending the knees is still a strong leg and still a strong thigh. It doesn't mean pick up the weight. You see where that pulls me? If my knees just fall up to the ceiling, this is me falling up and down at the same time, if you catch my drift. Rolling up the spring is there to help me. That is where I should focus on what action stands down through the legs as I lift and articulate my spine with my actual abdominal muscles to come into flexion. Let the knees bend and I can stack up. Now if I choose to just come a little bit closer, I'll be able to keep my feet on the poles longer. And it's really a good feeling of what reaches into the poles and presses me up out of my hips to stand up. That press up out of allows for more advanced skills with the bar, like your flat back. This still has to initiate from the hips, right? I still have to think, press into the legs and pull myself back away. At a certain point, I then can change the initiation to leading with the top of the head, pulling back into a swan, not getting heavy, curl, roll back through, straightening the arms. This gets a little bit more complicated, right? If I'm going to come up with a flat back, I'm going to ground through my legs and hip, give a little nudge into adjusting my headlight, and lift up through. Super advanced using that strength in the back of your shoulders, pulling the bar as you press through the legs to go back and come back home. Ooh, it's so good for those paraspinals. But I can't, if I do not have that conversation into the strength of the back of my legs in order to actually help me find the hip extensor system, whether I choose to come up in a flat back, articulate my spine and spinal flexion, that is a choice. That is a choice that you have to decide if that body in front of you needs. But I hope that was good in helping you understand really anatomically what's happening in your roll-up that really carries on really all the way through Pilates. That's why, you teach it in the beginning, right? If you want to dive in about hip flexors, my next F-bomb coming up is hip flexors from hell. But if you want to go even deeper than that, you can get all 14 F-bombs and replays if you sign up for my 10-week immersive mentorship that will run this fall for the last time for a while. So get it while it's hot. We will go nose to toes, breaking down everything there is anatomically that we need to know as Pilates practitioners so that we can help our clients when that's when they came to us in the first place, right? To feel better. So check it out. It'll be the last time I run it for a while, so see you there.